Okay, and for the third time, apologies for repeating myself. Good morning. My name is Mark Lawton from Risc IT Solutions, and welcome to this Unifying Communications with Microsoft Teams session from Boardroom Briefings. First things first, despite the fact that we've got a lovely picture of Mike Korkidakis on there from WaveNet, unfortunately he's been taken ill, which is the first time it's happened to us, so apologies. It was fairly short notice, so we felt it made a lot more sense to continue with the session. We will arrange some separate sessions with you guys, along with myself and Mike, if following this session it's something that you want to dive into a bit more detail around. But we will be covering Mike's content, his slides, and also the demo that Mike would normally do. So normally with boardroom briefings, for those of you that have been to any of our face-to-face ones, the original concept was that we would do roundtable face-to-face decision maker events around key IT subjects. So primarily, or certainly so far, has been around security and productivity mainly. Obviously, as COVID has hit, we've moved those online and continue with them successfully. So we've done a few with some of our partners. So I'll talk a little bit about Risc first and who we are and why we're talking about Teams, and then we'll cover the WaveNet piece in the second half. So rather than two for the price of one, you'll get me twice, unfortunately for you, but we'll hopefully do it justice without Mike being here. But a little bit about us. So Risc are a Microsoft partner. We are focused around cloud services and have been for the last 20 years or so. Primarily security, productivity, and also agile infrastructure, so primarily data centers and Microsoft Azure for customers that want to move into the cloud. We look after about 25,000 end users of Office 365, and part of that we work with about 250 partners across the UK that provide some of that sort of hands-on local connection to our customers, and about 1,000 customers across primarily the UK. In terms of our key partners, Microsoft being the main one, probably 80% of what we do is around Microsoft Cloud Services, Office 365 primarily. I also mentioned Azure and a little bit of Dynamics. We also work with a number of key partners that complement what we do in terms of cloud services. So WaveNet, that we're going to be talking about today, really complement and enhance what we do and what we offer to our customers around Teams primarily, and Skype for Business before that. So we'll obviously be drilling into a bit more detail around the WaveNet offering and what that looks like and what that can bring to your Teams deployment. Another key partner, which we also run events with, Redstore, so they provide our cloud backup and recovery, so our business continuity platform for backing up traditional on-premise data center servers, as well as cloud services like Office 365. Obviously the focus for today is WaveNet. I mean, in terms of unified communications itself, so my background is almost 3 years now at Risc. Before that I was at Microsoft, before that was at BT, so I've been working in the Microsoft Unified Communications area since about 2008, which is when, for those of you that are old enough and have been around in this part of the business for that long, remember OCS was the first product that Microsoft launched that had full voice capability. So that was 2008, and I've been involved in that part of it since then, and through Link and then Skype for Business, and now where we are with Teams. So for those of you that have attended our end user quick start events and one of these events previously, apologies for this. You can probably switch off and make a cup of coffee for the next 5 minutes, because I'll have talked through this for those of you that were on our session yesterday. But certainly COVID-19 and the current situation we find ourselves in has obviously dramatically changed people's perception and people's need to work flexibly, whether that's from home, but certainly away from the office. And these sort of press releases, screenshots over the last couple of months. So this first one was from March, when I guess the lockdown really kicked in, particularly in Europe, after the lockdown first occurred in China. And Microsoft themselves saw something like a 70% increase in what they call daily active users, which is how they measure the number of people that are using Teams at any one time. So some of the numbers that are coming out of Microsoft are crazy in terms of usage. Obviously Teams was Microsoft were pushing Teams heavily before COVID-19 hit in terms of being their future collaboration platform for customers, but obviously they've seen something like what they expected to happen over the next 2 years effectively crunched down into 2 months. So they saw 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months because of COVID. And I think we all know we've all been using Teams or Zoom or WebEx or a combination of all three. Teams is not the only platform, but obviously it's a key one for most of us. And I'm making the assumption that most, if not all of you, are already using Office 365 and by process of elimination are likely to be using Teams already. So yeah, back in May, the BBC raised a good question. Will we ever go back to the office? And I think for most of our customers and for us included, the answer is, well, it will be a mix of working from home and working in the office. And if you look at organizations, as an example, Fujitsu here have basically come out and said they're going to offer their 80,000 employees the option to work from home. So will we ever go back to the office? Yes and no. And I think it's made tools like Teams more important to us on a day-to-day basis. Microsoft, as you'd expect, have done or commissioned, they don't do it themselves, commissioned lots of research around the future of work and where organizations see themselves going in the future. And obviously this has been updated recently off the back of the environment caused by COVID. This was this survey, which you can look at, it's publicly available, there's the link at the bottom, is a survey they had commissioned for their big partner conference they had in July. So this is pretty up to date, and I think it says it all there that something like 82% of managers within businesses that were surveyed expect to continue with flexible working from home policies post-pandemic. So once the pandemic's over, touch wood, most organizations won't go back to working in exactly the same way as they did before, if that makes sense. And just I noticed most of you haven't got your video on, but by all means switch it on if you don't mind. It just helps with the interaction. But they've seen again a massive increase in the use of video. Again, some of the stats coming out of Microsoft are, as you'd expect, huge numbers. Something like 4 billion minutes of Teams meetings in one day was their peak. So again, the usage of the platform and how people use it by naturally using video more often, just to feel that they're part of a team, has changed the way that most of us have been working over the last 3 or 4 months. So why Teams? And as I mentioned before, there are a number of platforms. Teams isn't the only platform that can help support a remote workforce, but being as it's Microsoft and part of Office 365, it's no doubt the largest one. A lot of our customers ask us why Teams? Why do we need to adopt Teams? Why have we got another product that Microsoft are trying to encourage us to use? And I think it's a good question. I think the honest answer from our point of view is, if you look at where Microsoft are trying to take Office 365 and looking at the roadmap for Teams will become the only place, or certainly the main place that people go to get work done. And already products, excuse me, it's too quick. Products like SharePoint and the capabilities that were in Skype, like voice, which would be our focus today, video, live meetings, video conferences, chat, that's all embedded and built into Teams now as a single product. Things like Outlook with your email and calendar is partly there. So obviously your calendar is currently available in Teams, and that's synced across Outlook. Your email isn't there yet. That's something else that's coming in the roadmap. So you could see, fast forwarding probably in a year's time, that all of these existing Office 365 products and services like Outlook, all of that capability will be built into Teams, so you don't actually have to leave the Teams app to get work done. And as well as Microsoft's products, you'll see within Teams, you've got lots of third-party bolt-ins. So even services that compete with Teams, such as Zoom and WebEx, have bots and plugins for Teams, which means you can spin up a Zoom meeting or a WebEx meeting without leaving Teams, because as well as Microsoft, most organizations see the usage and the adoption of Teams being massive and want to be part of that and make sure that their product is accessible through Teams. So stating the obvious, and again, Going back 5 or 6 months, then I probably would have had to explain this to people, but I think for most of you, you're already using it. You've already joined this Teams meeting. If you've not used Teams before, that's a great start. So you've experienced what it can deliver. But in summary, it offers primarily these 4 things. If you wouldn't mind, just keep yourselves on mute if you're not speaking, that'd be great. Until the next session. So yeah, these 4 things. So persistent chat, they talk about persistent chat in Teams. What they mean by that is that it's basically accessible and kept forever unless you have a retention policy that stops it being kept forever. So every chat conversation you have, every chat conversation that happens as part of a meeting, as we're doing today, then that's accessible and searchable from the first day you started using Teams, unless you choose to delete it. Group chat, hugely powerful, internal and external chats, and again, I'll cover that in a little bit more detail as we go through the session. Powerful online meetings, which is what we're doing now. Absolutely. Enterprise calling and voice. Now that is obviously where we're going to focus today with the WaveNet session. That's something that is embedded as part of Teams. Obviously, it's doesn't do what we call enterprise calling, so the ability to call outside of Teams to a normal phone number and vice versa to receive a call from outside of Teams is not standard in the product out of the box. So we'll talk about how we can enable that and how you can use Teams as your single application, your single platform for getting work done. And then this built-in Office 365 application, so as well as the ability to connect to SharePoint and access files, then you've got all of these other third-party apps, as I mentioned, like WebEx and like Zoom that work with Teams. And I think more importantly for you as users, for you as customers, the fact that it is part of Office 365, it's secured in exactly the same way as the rest of Office 365. You've got single sign-on, a single identity, so all of the security, all of the compliance, all of the other areas that you may want to look at, like GDPR, e-discovery, that's all works seamlessly with Teams. So I think the big differentiation between what we're doing today, which is using Teams for a live meeting, versus other products like Zoom and WebEx, is it's a single platform. It's part of Office 365. It's much more than a meeting platform and a conference platform. So that's my sort of introductory piece around Teams. As I mentioned, for those of you that have just joined, apologies, Mike is not going to make the call today. He's been taken ill, so I'm going to run through Mike's piece and hopefully give you a slightly different perspective. So obviously Risc have been a partner of WaveNet's now for a couple of years. Before that, when they were actually Via. So Via were very innovative in the Skype for Business, or Link as it was originally, Skype for Business, and now Teams space. They're now part of WaveNet, and that relationship has continued. So hopefully I can give you a view from a partner of WaveNet's point of view. So just bear with me. You'll see my desktop there. I'm just going to switch slide decks now. Just make sure that you can see that. Okay. Does that look okay, Sean? Just starting to check me on that one.
All good, Mark. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll just take a slurp. Okay, so yeah, apologies for Mike not being here. As I mentioned, we'll run through this session as we've done this previously with Mike, and I'll present his slides from the viewpoint of Risc. As I say, we've been a partner of WaveNet's for a while now, pretty much since they acquired Via a couple of years ago. Really for that Microsoft focused unified communications, Skype for Business, and now Teams specific. So we're going to run through a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing in the workforce out there that are driving adoption of products like Teams, some of the features and benefits, and I guess for most of you, the key question is, why TeamsLink versus the Microsoft product. So you can get voice services from Microsoft directly, There are a lot of differences between what we can do as a partner with WaveNet versus what we can do directly with Microsoft, but it doesn't change the core product. The core product is still Teams, and WaveNet take advantage of a service called direct routing, which basically means that all of the inbound and outbound calls, contact center, call recording, etc., is done outside Teams. Everything else is done within Teams, so nothing changes dramatically from an end user and an IT admin point of view. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the hardware, things like room systems, and I'll run you through a demo of what the admin portal looks like, which is again one of the key differentiators that WaveNet give us over and above Microsoft and the majority of WaveNet's competitors as well. So as I say, I'm not going to do the WaveNet sales pitch, but yeah, in terms of the Teams product, I mean, we use it internally. We run our help desk on it. We run our whole business on it, and we've have a number of customers now that have already moved from legacy Skype for Business onto Teams using the WaveNet TeamsLink product. And I think future-proofed is a an overused term there, but I think that's exactly what it is. So for those customers that we had that were using Skype for Business, we've managed to migrate the bulk of those already to Teams, so they have a single platform to work from. I think, as most of you know, Microsoft are winding down, if that's the right word, end of life for Skype for Business Online. So if you use a Skype for Business Online product as part of Office 365, that will be ended in July next year. So there is a need to move to Teams at some point if you've not already done that. Microsoft do allow you to run in what's called hybrid mode, in islands mode, so you can run both Skype for Business and Teams side by side, but obviously it's more effective. It's better from an end user experience point of view to actually have a single product, a single application that they can use for conversations internally and externally. So again, what is TeamsLink? Why TeamsLink compared to the core Microsoft product? So I think the important thing to be upfront about is it's a Microsoft approved solution. So this direct routing facility that Microsoft have built into Teams has opened up Teams much more effectively than maybe Skype for Business and Link before it were available. So for example, with Skype for Business, WaveNet would run their own Skype for Business servers, and that would be how you would access Skype for Business and Link before it. Now Teams is only available as part of Office 365. You can't take a Teams server product and spin it up in your data center and run it internally. So Microsoft have created this direct routing interface, which effectively allows partners like WaveNet to plug their telephony platform into Teams and enhance the services that we can offer. And there is a comparison table a little bit further through this slide deck that compares the features and benefits. I think from our point of view, the benefits are sort of flexibility, resilience. So the SLAs around the TeamsLink product is much better than we get from the Microsoft core product. I think availability of numbers, if you're operating outside the UK, is much more comprehensive in the WaveNet product. And I think also things like being able to port numbers in and manage that whole process of moving from a traditional telephony platform to a cloud-based Teams platform is much easier to do with a partner like WaveNet. But the other unique that they have is the admin portal, which allows you to manage your call routing, your users, your reports, and I'll go through that in the demo rather than talking about it now. It'll make much more sense to show you how that looks. Again, this is a Microsoft slide that we've stolen before and WaveNet have stolen, which just talk about pre-COVID, the sort of changes in the workplace, and being a seasoned IT person, I'm not sure what they mean by this 5 generations in the workforce. I think what they're trying to say is that actually you've got people from the age of 18 to the age of 70 trying to use technology. So it's important that that technology is intuitive and easy to use. And I think more important, it can be used from any device, whether that's a PC, a desktop, a Mac, or an iPad. Then you'll see the fact that Teams is available on all of these platforms and works well. Collaboration, yeah, absolutely. I think for most of us, obviously the change from being face-to-face in the office to being remote from most of your colleagues and your teams has its challenges. I think being able to chat, to be able to keep that sort of chat flow going, to be able to see people, even though they're remote, has been massively powerful. And I think for us, again, we moved out of the office. We'd already got TeamsLink in place, so for us it was seamless. For customers calling in for technical support, for them it was seamless because we could answer the phone from wherever. And I guess we kind of take that for granted, and not all customers are in that position. Our biggest customer, which is a charity, we migrated over, and I think we actually finished the project on the 18th of March, and they shut their office on the 20th. So their timing was perfect. So they moved from a traditional hardware-based, office-based phone system where they were all in one office to Teams, where effectively overnight they were all working from home. And again, that move was seamless. So it does enable you to support flexible working, but also enables you to offer that service to your customers that is seamless from wherever people are working from, home, office, Costa, wherever. So I'm going to skip through that one because it's kind of summarized there. So some of the features and benefits of the WaveNet TeamsLink product are designed to help you as organizations to solve some of the challenges of managing those remote teams. And one of the things that we kind of take for granted, I guess, if you use Skype for Business, if you use Teams, is this presence. And actually the presence capability is core and fundamental to everything that Microsoft do, and that availability ripples across all of the Office 365 products. So whether you're using Outlook, whether you're using a web app, whether you're actually editing a Word document, you can see the availability of your colleagues, whether they're internal colleagues or actually external colleagues. So goes without saying, again, if you've not used Teams or Skype for Business in anger, you can communicate and see the present status of anybody that's using Skype for Business or Teams, that allows you to communicate with them externally. So that external presence is hugely powerful as well. So thinking back to the old days where you had a phone on the desk, you picked it up and dialed somebody, you don't know whether they're available before you pick that phone up. And the massive change of using a product like Teams is you know whether that person's available before you pick up the phone or message them. And that sort of chat presence capability, again, fundamental. I'm obviously running a PowerPoint presentation in Teams today, so my status will be automatically set to presenting, which is do not disturb, so I won't get any messages or calls coming through, and Teams handles a lot of that, or majority of that, automatically for you. If you're away from your desk, it'll tell your colleagues that you've been away from your desk for X number of minutes. So again, just seeing if people are ready to have a conversation before you pick up the phone or talk to them is, again, if you've been using this technology as long as I have, you kind of take it for granted. But compared to a traditional phone system where you don't know, or you may do if it's got some presence app that sits on a phone somewhere, but it's not integrated into Office 365 generally. I'm sure there are exceptions, but again, going back to my original point that Teams is a core part of Office 365 and therefore is baked into everything that you do, is a massive benefit. And just having that all-in-one communication, I know for me, even before sort of 5 months ago, probably, when we were still using Skype for Business for calls, but we were using Teams for everything else, running that in islands mode, just having those two apps was frustrating. Having a single place, a single product to manage those chat conversations, and we have lots of them now, obviously because we're remote, those calls, those meetings, those video conferences all in one place is massively beneficial. And I'll talk about hardware and phones and traditional handsets in a second, but all of the setup you have on here, all of the contacts, all of the things like speed dial, for example, you see there on that screenshot. If you go into calls, you'll see you can actually set up speed dial users, and those can be replicated across to what I call traditional handsets, not traditional handset, but Teams hardware. So it's completely integrated across PC, tablet, Mac, phone, video conferencing suite. So having that, again, having that single platform is massively beneficial across the board. So in terms of financial benefits, and probably setting myself up to be shot down here, but I think in terms of compared to refreshing a traditional telephony platform where you've got hardware to buy, you've got hardware to manage, you've got hardware to maintain, then there are no upfront expenses unless you need to refresh hardware. And again, this is down to how you want to approach the move to Teams Voice from where you are now. Obviously, I'm guessing you're all at different parts of that journey. You might have a traditional on-premise PBX running. You might already have cloud-delivered IP voice, but it's not integrated with Teams. Wherever you are on that journey, the telephony side of Teams, delivered by WaveNet through TeamsLink, is a pay-as-you-go monthly commitment and very little upfront cost. Maybe some training. If you need to do a hardware refresh, then obviously there's some cost there. That can be amortized as always. So, the operating costs, for us, it's the tariff that we get from WaveNet. And again, I've got a comparison table in a second that shows you, compared to the Microsoft one, it's unlimited calls as you'd expect anywhere in the UK, plus a number of international minutes as well. So generally, you can budget exactly how much it's going to cost per user per month for that service. And scalable, again, goes without saying, it's a cloud service. It's scalable up and down. So if you need to increase your workforce by 50 tomorrow, that's fairly easy to do. Likewise, if you need to reduce it by 50 the following day, we can do that as well. So that's massively important. And so the whole point of it being pay as you go, scalable up and down, alongside Teams and Office 365 itself. Obviously, Office 365 itself is scalable up and down. From one user up to however many thousand users you've got in your organization. And again, this probably seems like a little bit like old news now that we've kind of 4 or 5 months into lockdown. I don't think we need to look for ways to justify the benefits of home working. And obviously, it's, as always, it's a double-edged sword. I think for most people, the ability to work from home is mostly an upside. It does have its downsides. If you've tried to work from home in a shared office with small kids running around, then it's not ideal. So generally, remote workers are less stressed, depending on what their home environment looks like. Again, generally, I think for most organizations, the ability to allow people to work in the way that they prefer. And again, just using Risc as an example, we've got a number of people on our technical support desk. Some are very keen to get back to the office 5 days a week. Some are very keen to stay where they are because they need to isolate themselves. However, and the majority, probably half, are somewhere between the two. So they'd like to come into the office some days, but also like the option to work from home because travel, etc. So I think, as always, somewhere between the two extremes is the right answer. Remote workers are more engaged. Again, you could question that. I mean, to be honest, naturally, I don't know how you found with the way you work now post lockdown, but I do find and make more effort to communicate with people outside of my direct team, just because I'm kind of conscious, are they okay? How they're coping? Just checking in. We have a company-wide Monday morning call, which we never had before. So that kind of changing the way that you communicate with people, because you do have to make more effort to communicate. It's not like you're walking into an office with people around. So commuting's a massive, I mean, for me personally, it's not a massive issue because I'm close to the office, but I know talking to, even the people at Microsoft based in Reading, even the people that are fairly local had a 3-hour round trip just to get into the office. So, they're quite grateful that they've got no plans to reopen that office anytime soon. So again, it's a balance, isn't it? And as always, thanks to Mike for putting these very complex stats in. I'll just pick out a few of them. And again, I've seen these numbers for the last sort of 10 years when we've been talking about unified comms and collaboration. So the ability to collaborate easily with people within your team, outside your team, and people outside of your organization does save about 4 hours per week. Again, got links to the surveys behind this. And obviously cutting down travel is the big one. So being able to run online meetings is a no-brainer really, and being able to think before you jump in the car and travel. And I think that's the big sort of benefit of having a platform like Teams. Okay, as I promised, there is a comparison table. Again, as part of the follow-up information that Sean will send to you, you'll have all of these slides and an information pack with some more detail around the TeamsLink product. But as I mentioned, to enable voice within Office 365 and on top of Teams, you need two things, two licenses basically. So you have something called phone system, which gives you, as it says on the tin, the phone system capability, and then you need a calling plan, and that calling plan can be direct from Microsoft. And there are a number of reasons why, for most customers, TeamsLink works better. Some of them are there, so just the ability to set up and configure it. The fact that the tariffs are much easier to understand and more flexible. Unlimited minutes as an example. The Microsoft one doesn't have an unlimited tariff, so you've got 1200 minutes as standard. Also the ability to do things like skills-based routing as part of the contact center bolt-on, to do proper call queuing, to be able to do group voicemail, to do MiFID-based compliant call recording. Again, you can't do that with Microsoft directly. So if you've got even a basic call recording requirement, then that has to be done outside of Teams. As you can see from the fact that I'm recording the call today, you can use Teams to record, but that has to be initiated by yourself. If you want every conversation, every call, every meeting to be recorded for compliance, then that has to be done outside of Teams, and I can show you what that looks like briefly with our call recording platform. The visual routing manager, actually I'll show you that. That's probably easier for me to show you what that looks like. So that's enough on the slides. I'm going to flip to the demo now, if that's okay. Sean, unless there are any questions while I do this.
Nothing in the chat anyway, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to use the raise hand feature now and you can ask Mark directly.
Okay.
Nothing just yet.
Okay. No, that's fine. I was hoping somebody could ask a question so I could have a sip of coffee, but I'll do that anyway.
Sure, just
okay, that's fine. So flipping to the WaveNet portal, then this is what it looks like. So again, this is one of the real big advantages that we see for us managing our customers, and also for our customers' IT staff that can manage how the call routing is handled. So this is fairly unique to WaveNet. I've seen some other direct routing partners that have been talking to us and talking to our customers, where you have to effectively PowerShell script anything that you want to do in there, which is not great. So the bulk of what you need to do in the WaveNet portal in the WaveNet platform is delivered through this portal. So you'll see there I'm logged in as me. This just gives us a quick summary from an organizational level. Somebody's obviously been making some calls to numbers they shouldn't. So there's £2.29. Those are generally directory inquiries or something like that sits outside of the call routing. But I'll just show you what that looks like. And you also got this little service health bit here. So thank goodness there's nothing like doing a live demo. They're all green by the looks of it. So if you click that, we'll open up another tab, which is the service status. So all systems are operational. As you see there, they've got three regions where they've got core data centers, so UK, US, and Australia for the WaveNet platform. And this is, you can subscribe to updates. So if you want to see anytime there's an outage, and touch wood, we don't get many problems. There was a little degradation on the admin portal there, but in terms of call traffic, so both for us and for our customers, it's been, touch wood, bulletproof since the day we flipped over to the WaveNet platform. So that's a good view from a partner's point of view. So yeah, if you look at London, it will actually break it down by each of the services. So IM and presence is not relevant for Teams. That's only relevant for Skype for Business, where WaveNet are actually hosting the Skype servers as well. But everything else looks good from that point of view. So flicking back to the portal, a few things you can do that are very easy to do with the WaveNet service that are really difficult to do without extracting information through PowerShell with Microsoft are things like a quick look at activity. So I just click here, look at peer-to-peer. You can see it just gives me a quick snapshot of the activity, obviously for today. So these are all of the inbound and outbound calls, where they're going to and who's made them. So these are primarily some of our tech team. That's a real quick peer-to-peer activity. You can also drill into more detailed reports here as well. There we go. So you can do things like advanced session usage summary, a call summary, missed calls. And again, this information is quite difficult to extract from the Microsoft platform. So you can actually sort these reports. To be honest, for most of our customers, we tend to find that we use Power BI to pull this information through. But if we hopefully we can see, that will give you a little bit of a snapshot of how many calls of each particular week, how many audio calls have been made through the platform. And if we look at this by individual user, I won't pick on myself because you probably, tell you what, let me pick on myself. And you can see how many calls I've made. So you can do really quick snapshot reports and export those reports as well. So if I go back into there, so things like call summary, you can do that by department. So let's go from the 1st of August to the end of August. Going to group it by week, and I'm going to pick on the sales team, sales guys. So again, you'll get a snapshot, a real time extracted from the WaveNet database of who's making those inbound and outbound calls. Again, that's just very sort of basic reporting. There are much more detailed reports we can pull out, particularly into Power BI, and there are a number of templates that we can give you as a customer to visualize that in a little bit more detail. Just flicking back to the portal, I'm just going to go to the setup one at the moment and look at things like security. So this allows you also to easily control at an organizational level things like your dial policy. So we click in here, you can actually define which countries you want to allow or disallow just by ticking the box here. Obviously there's a single all numbers box there, so if you say, okay, I'm happy for people to call anywhere, obviously bearing in mind that that might incur additional charges. The WaveNet bundle gives you 600 international minutes pooled across the organization. So obviously if you've got 10 users, you've got 6,000 minutes a month there. But things like UK premium rate, UK talking clock, if anybody ever phones talking clock anymore, you know, those obviously are outside of the bundle. But generally for most organizations, as you see with ours, we've got the key international countries ticked and most UK numbers, but very easy as a global admin to be able to control that. You can also, we haven't got any block callers, you can block callers if you've got persistent spam calls coming in, you can do that here. So very similar to how you would manage a traditional phone system. You could do things like, if you look in the call routing box here, so outbound CLI, this is normally the number one that you need to manage here. So every time we call out, it doesn't give out our direct dial. So every user, and we'll look at the users in a second, so every user on our platform has a direct dial number associated with them. But when we dial out, we obviously present the main incoming number. So you can basically set that presentation number to any number that you own as part of your pool of numbers. Obviously you can't just set it to any number you like. You can create an outbound CLI there. So new outbound CLI. So any spare number we've got in our pool of numbers here, we can set that to be another outbound CLI and then assign that to users. So very, very easy to control that CLI setup. Picking on a few other bits here. So for example, under the common tab here, we've got media. So what we've done as a business, so this is our live platform. We've uploaded a number of voice messages. So if you call into our main number, you'll hear a standard message that says, welcome to Risc, press 1 for sales, 2 for technical, etc. Those are all uploaded beforehand into this media list here, and then they can be associated to any of the inbound numbers and inbound call groups, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Likewise, voicemail. Again, this is something that you can't do, or should I say is very difficult to do on the standard Microsoft platform, is to have group mailboxes. So again, if you call into sales, if we don't answer it, it'll go to everybody in the wider team. If you still don't answer it, you'll get a group voicemail answered, and then we'll get forwarded a copy of that voicemail, and that's hosted on Wavenet's platform. You can't do that with Microsoft. You can only send it to an individual's voicemail, which is not great. So we use that quite a lot. If we look at users here, so this is our list of users. You can set these up manually, or Wavenet actually have a Active Directory sync tool that can obviously pull users across, or they can be uploaded in a template as well. If I just show you very quickly to create a user, I'll pick on myself as a test user. Obviously use a username that I haven't already got. Pick from a number of domains that we've got uploaded into there, and then as long as there's a license free from the portal, you can allocate that license. And again, pick a number that's available as part of the pool of numbers. Do you want them to be a contact center agent or supervisor? Yes or no? And then this other information can be added in as well. But generally, that's all you need to do there to create a new user. Rather than doing that, I'll just show you what my user looks like. There we go. Yes, so it tells you that's my DDI number there, telephone office 791. It presents my outbound CLI, and I'm enabled for contact center agent capability, and I'll show you very quickly what that looks like in a second. And it also tells you what ring groups I'm part of and what call queues I'm part of. So ring groups, actually, hold that thought. I'll just show you what call routes look like first. So the basic functionality, and again, this is very easy to do. If I look at our current call routes, it will show you visually how calls are handled. So when you call our main number here, there are a number of things it does. This is what's called a time condition. So during opening hours, it goes to this IVR system, which has 5 options. And if I close that down, out of hours, it goes to a different IVR that then has a different message on it that will say the office is now closed. If you need emergency support, press 1. So obvious, you can drag and drop these, you can add them, you can configure them. So if I'm not going to change this because this is our live environment, but as you can see there, effectively it's uploaded that WAV file that I mentioned before that is called Risc IT Solutions 5 options. So the user gets that. If they press 1, then they go to sales, and that is a ring group. So I've mentioned ring groups, and I've also mentioned call queues. So just focusing on ring groups, that's the basic functionality that effectively you get included within the TeamsLink product. So that allows you to build a group of users, and when a call comes in, unless the user is already on a call, or if they're on Do Not Disturb, or if they're logged out, then they will get presented a call. So potentially all 4 of us there in the sales team will get presented a call at the same time. And obviously whoever answers that first gets it. And that's the way the basic ring group functionality works. As you can see here, if it's not answered within 10 seconds, then it goes to the next level, which is general inquiries, which is basically anybody in the business that can answer the phone. If for any reason it still doesn't get answered within 20 seconds, then it'll go to voicemail, which, touch wood, happens very rarely. So you've got absolute control and configuration over how you set that up, and it's very simple to create a call route. So if I just click that number here, hang on, I just need to close that one first, sorry. If I create call route there, I can just pick, again, these DDI numbers have already been uploaded, so these are allocated to us. Either they've been imported when we moved from our old phone system, or Wavenet have added them into our portal to make them available. So you can just literally pick a DDI there. So let's pick one that's not been used before, and then you can just literally build the call route like that. So you can say, what I want it to do is to go straight to an IVR, and it will go away and bring up the list of IVRs. Mark's test. What voicemail do you want them to hear when they call? 5 options, and then you can save that. And then you start building what happens if they press option 1. You want it to go to a ring group, and then it gives you a list of all the ring groups. Okay, again, I'm not going to save that because that's a live environment, but you can specify either an existing ring group that you've already prepared, or you can actually create a new one, and then pick the users that you want as part of that ring group. So very, very easy to set up a number and then to set up how you want to handle that number. I'm not going to close that one, but I am going to just very, very quickly show you what a ring group looks like. So again, pick on the sales team as always. So you'll see it gives you everybody below, and obviously the ones that are ticked are members of the sales ring group, and that's as easy as it gets to set that up. So the difference between a ring group and a call queue. So we're starting to get more into the contact center functionality now. So with the WaveNet offering, there is a contact center enhanced license that gives you what's called call queues as opposed to ring groups. So that gives you a bit more flexibility in how you handle those calls, and gives you other features like supervisor dashboards and wall boards, and I'll show you what that looks like again in a second. So if you look at a call queue, so I've just set this one up just to demonstrate today. We don't actually use call queues in Risc. The ring group seems to work for us. For other customers, they want that additional functionality and visibility that you get from the contact center side. So I've created a call queue. I've called it Teams Experts, and there's only me in it. So at the moment, but obviously you've got a bit more configuration that you can do there. So you've got wrap up time. So for those of you that have already got contact center platforms, you'll understand a lot of this terminology and functionality. But the other big thing that call queues give you that you don't get in normal ring groups is this skill-based routing. So you can set let me edit that and make more sense. You can actually set the skill level to whatever number you want. Obviously, the agent with the highest skill level in that queue is the one that will get the call first in preference. So what it's doing here is presenting me with the 3 users that are licensed for contact center. So I've just ticked myself and just set myself to 1 for now, just so it works. And the other slight difference is, although it will use the Teams app to answer the call, you can actually set yourself as available or away here in this little tab that sits in the browser. So at the moment I'm available. Obviously I can do things like start a break, go on break, and it'll tell the supervisor that that's what I'm doing. So if I just pick my phone up, so if you look at the call queue there, if you look at call routes, Microsoft Experts.
Just a quick one, Mark.
Yeah.
I've had a question saying, is it an additional license for contact center?
Yes, it is. It's a bolt-on enhanced license that goes on top of the standard TeamsLink license. And there's an agent license, and then there's a supervisor license that gives you obviously enhanced access. But we can give you the details of that in the follow-up information if that would help.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mark.
So very quickly, I've just created again, for the purposes of demoing it today, just added this number that we're not currently using and pointed it into that Teams expert queue, and I'm just going to call that number now, which is 085. So if you see on the right hand side, you'll see it'll start to say ringing there. Oh, so what's happened is it rang for a split second, but because my Teams client is on do not disturb, because I'm presenting, it obviously immediately took me out of that queue. So without actually taking myself off do not disturb, that's not the easiest thing to demonstrate. But if I just show you what the wallboard looks like, there you go. So it's telling me now that Mark's available. So 100% of agents are available, so 1 of 1. There are no active calls. There's a call sitting in the queue, and 71% of calls have been abandoned. So this is me, this morning calling in and doing some testing. So just gives you a basic sort of view of what the wallboard looks like. Also, you have the sort of supervisor dashboard. Obviously, at the moment, it's telling me that that Mark is available because I've made myself available in the queue side, but I'm on Do Not Disturb in Teams, so it's not rippling through, but it's telling me that there's a call waiting in the queue there. So if you just bear with me a second while I open this bit and change my status, then I should be able to. That's better. So I've just overridden my presenting status and made myself put myself on off Do Not Disturb and put myself onto available. So if I just make that call again, very, very quickly, if I just go to the wallboard, again, it will tell me that that call is coming in. Yeah, nothing like trying to do a live demo. So what would happen is that call would be presented to me in Teams if I wasn't already on in a Teams meeting, and then I can answer it just using the standard Teams client. So effectively, the contact center bolt-on is a front end again to the Teams app. It just gives you another level of control and sophistication over and above what you get in the standard TeamsLink product just by adding a license on. If you want something more sophisticated, more complex, then we do work with other hosted contact center platforms that can do things like multimedia contact center. So this is fairly basic in terms of contact center, but on the flip side is fairly low cost bolt onto the Teams and TeamsLink product. So that gives you a supervisor dashboard, gives you a wallboard, and obviously you can pull off contact center reports using this option here. Again, these reports fairly basic. Let's see whether it's actually created. There might not be any data in there. Okay, there is. So it's been up to date. So it does give you again a quick snapshot of the day so far in terms of being a report. And again, a lot of this information is just stored in free text. We can import that into Power BI and create those Power BI dashboards for you. There are a number of templates that you can use to do that. The other final thing, I think I've probably covered everything that's important on that portal there. Obviously, from a support point of view, it depends. Yeah, your IT admin can have access to this portal. In a lot of cases, we support our customers directly through this, so we'll manage it on their behalf. So I won't show you who the customers are, but if we go to organizations, I can flick to different customers' setups and do that directly from here. The other, very quickly, the call recording side of things. So this is based on, if any of you know the Variant Verba platform. So this basically pulls every call. Let me just refresh that. There we go. So there are two options. Well, there are three options. You can obviously use the Teams recording, but you need to initiate the recording. There are two options if you want every conversation recorded. There's a 90-day basic call recording option. So, and then there's a 7-year MiFID II compliant version. So for those of you that primarily in financial services, then you can obviously see just for today's. Sorry, this is this month's date. You'll see all the calls that I've made today are stored there on the platform. At the moment, I've only got the call recording side of thing enabled. You can actually, again, bolt on full Teams multimedia recording as well. So you can record every online meeting, including slides, voice, video, etc. At the moment, I've just got the voice conferencing side of things. So you can actually do, if I click on my conversation, a very exciting conversation with Bruce yesterday. There we go. You'll see it gives you quite a lot of information about that conversation, and you can do things like, let me just open that up. Conversation details. You can do things like search for metadata. So if you've got, it will actually transcribe the conversation and make that available to you to search on the left hand side. Let me just refresh that. Doesn't seem to want to play the verb. No, we'll come back to that. So that's basically saying that for that modality there, I was using audio, video, data, and screen sharing, and Alan was just using audio, video, and data. So just showing you there how it records every conversation, every transaction. Again, if you want a bit more detail on that and want a full demo of how that is enabled in your tenant and how that recording can be searched, I think it's not giving me exactly what I want here, so apologies. You can create cases there. So it's not allowing me to search through that. So we'll come back to that one. It's giving me an error. I think it's probably because I've got it open in another window somewhere. So just bear with me. We'll come back to that if there's something that you're particularly interested in. So that's the other thing. Just thinking about the additional functionality that that WaveNet can provide, as well as the obvious TeamsLink voice and call queuing and the portal. Then call recording is an option. Contact center is an option, and those are the key bits as well. So I'm just going to move back to the slide deck again, just with the last couple of slides there. So the other thing that Mike focused on when he finished his session was around the devices, and again we talked about that briefly in the intro. So I mean, Teams will support a number of devices. If you've got legacy, particularly headsets and USB handsets that you've used with Skype for Business and even Link, or even OCS, I've got a device that still works, will work with Teams. I think handsets and what we call Teams meeting rooms or Teams room systems, like the Link, which is on the third line down there, those are built specifically for Teams. So the phone, for example, there, that one at the top is a Link T55. So the little screen on the right hand side actually runs a cut down version of Teams based on Android, and that they are obviously fully Teams compatible. You can manage them through the admin center. You can push out firmware updates, all of that stuff. Teams will support some of the legacy Skype for Business, what they call 3-pip handsets. So if you've got investment in hardware that you want to maintain, it's potentially possible to do that. Obviously, there's limitations. You can get basic call transfer functionality from those handsets, but you can't do things like, one touch join a meeting and conference people in very easily. So ideally, if you're going to go for a hardware refresh, then pick devices that are certified for Teams. There's a really good website that Microsoft maintain that have got all of the approved devices on. So that shows a handset. Traditional headsets are much easier because they're USB. They can be upgraded. They will work with Teams generally back to the OCS version. That Teams room system at the bottom is actually what we've got here. So that's a Link MVC 500, I think it's called. So it's got high def camera. It's got a little Intel PC, and it's got this slate here. So effectively, you can walk into a room, join the meeting with one click, and then you're in the meeting. So it works really well from that point of view, and just really obviously leverages all of the benefits of Teams. So WaveNet through us can provide all of that, fully comprehensive set of hardware. Just finally, in terms of the WaveNet sales pitch here, I'll just talk about their project management and talking about their project management from a customer and a partner point of view. Obviously, we've done a lot of migrations from Skype, migrations from traditional telephony into Teams. WaveNet's project management is second to none in terms of making that process painless and managing things like, if any of you've done this number porting before, it can be a bit of a headache. Again, they've made that whole piece very seamless, and they provide that project management as part of the service. So certainly when we moved from our legacy phone system in 2018 to Skype for Business with WaveNet, that was all handled and that was seamless. So again, it's something that's probably often overlooked, but is an important value add again that WaveNet provide as part of their service. So that's it on the sort of WaveNet side specifically. I've got a few more slides that I was going to finish off on the Risc side, unless there are any questions, any raised hands. Sean?
Yeah, it's got
Kirsty, sorry, forgot you were there.
What you forgot? Thanks. Joking.
Sorry.
It says, what call recording platform do you support? External in brackets.
That's a good question. I mean, the WaveNet service that we provide as part of TeamsLink is based on Verint's Verba platform, which I think is fairly standard across the industry. I think a lot of other direct routing providers and other providers use that technology. In terms of plugging your own platform in, that's a different question and probably one I need to take offline. But certainly in terms of the information of what the platform looks like that we provide as part of the service, or as a bolt onto the service, should I say, again, that's Verint Verba, and that was what you saw the screenshot of. I will try and log in again in a second and show you what the recording looks and sounds like, but that works well. If you want to plug in your own call recording platform, if you've got hardware that delivers that, I'll probably need to take that question offline, Kirsty, if that's okay.
Yeah, Payush and Mark, I'll copy you both into a thread, and you can discuss further after the session today.
Okay, so without beating the drum about multiple devices, one stat that Mike came out with, which I didn't realise actually last time, is that Teams allows you to have up to 8 to be connected by up to 8 devices at a time. And that sounds like a hell of a lot, but it's not really. If you think at the moment I'm connected on this desktop here, I'm connected on my phone, I'm connected on my iPad, and I've also got a handset there. So that's 4 without really thinking. So it will support. So if somebody calls you, it will by default ring on any device that you're logged into Teams on. And obviously you can choose where to take that call. You can still do things like simultaneously ring a mobile if that's the way you want to work. So you can divert incoming calls to also ring your mobile. Generally, we don't recommend customers do that. We recommend, sorry, you sent a picture of my dog on the phone there. We recommend our customers install the Teams app on their phone and do it that way, because compared to previous products like Skype for Business, the Teams mobile app is in a different league, and that obviously works well and delivers that full Teams functionality. So if you haven't already got it, if you're using Teams and you haven't got it on your mobile, then definitely would recommend to install it, particularly if you're starting to use things like Business Voice. You see there, Business Voice, whether that's a calling plan direct from Microsoft or a calling plan from WaveNet, you'll get that dial pad that you can see there on the screen, and that's the big difference. Then obviously once you've got that DDI number, you can be reached from outside of Teams from a normal phone number, and likewise you can then be part of a ring group and be part of the organization. So calls can be transferred to you. You can transfer calls. We haven't covered that in any detail today, just due for time, but we also run, I know some of you came on yesterday's, we run an end user Teams session just really to help people navigate their way, and we cover making and receiving calls and transferring calls in that session. But you can, as you'd expect with a phone system, contact somebody else in the organization, put a call through, blind transfer, make it a 3, 4, 5-way call. So you can actually, you've got a lot of control and flexibility around how those calls are handled once they reach you. But as well as handsets, phones, then the other big benefit of Teams compared to, I think, any other telephony platform, and certainly compared to Skype for Business previously, is the amount of effort they put into making it available on every platform. So even using a web browser like Edge and Chrome, you can pretty much get all of the functionality that you can get through the Teams app. I think Teams app is always best in terms of functionality, whether that's Windows or Mac, but the web browser, unless it's Safari, is almost as good in terms of functionality. And obviously you can make calls, receive calls in the same way that you can through the app using the web browser, likewise with the phone and an iPad. So again, without beating the drum about devices, there's a whole catalog of them on the Microsoft website. Again, we'll put the link in the notes for that, and just really tells you whether it's Jabra, Sennheiser, Yealink, Logitech are the core providers, but obviously refreshing a number of handsets can be expensive for most of our customers. And thinking back to the charity that we migrated just before lockdown, they had 220 users, effectively with 220 handsets. When they moved to Teams, they did away with, I think, all the handsets bar 2. So they bought 2 Yealink handsets for reception, and everybody else had a USB headset. And they've worked fine. I think if your users are prepared to make that leap from a traditional handset that you pick up to a headset, get over that initial pain barrier learning curve, then obviously that's a lot lower cost. A Teams compatible headset like this one starts at about £30 compared to the lowest price Teams phone, which is about 140, something like that. So quite a big difference. But definitely a consideration is, have you got hardware you need to reuse? Do you need to replace phones with phones? If you do, what do they look like? If they don't, then what headsets do people need? And again, make sure that you don't compromise on going for devices that are Teams compatible. People shouldn't be using iBuds or whatever they're called these days. It doesn't give the caller the same experience. So without kind of being evangelical about hardware and handsets, just in terms of Teams, obviously, voice is just a small part of what it does. It's something that most people that use Teams don't have that full enterprise voice capability. But the beauty of having the core product hosted by Microsoft baked in as part of Office 365 is that you get this constant innovation, this constant refresh and upgrade of Teams itself, whether that's things like pop-out chat, which has only just become available. Now you can have multiple chat windows. Things like live captions and subtitling. So if you want to do it your end, you can switch on live captions and it will do its best to translate my accent into English. But also they're bringing in things like multilingual live captioning. So you can obviously present to a wider audience of different languages. This dynamic mode, which is flickering around dynamically. If you've got the new Teams app on Windows or Mac, you'll see that basically the Teams layout changes depending on how many people you've got in the room or in the video conversation. So Microsoft have gone from, at the start of lockdown, their video feed was 2x2, so 4 simultaneous feeds. Then it went to 3x3, as in 9, and now it's gone to 7x7, so 49 simultaneous feeds. And the obvious reason for that is to compete with products like Zoom. But they've got this dynamic mode where it'll flex and change depending on how many people are there. Live events is something else. If you've not come across that, we've not used live events today for the main reason that we want to try and keep these sessions interactive. So we just use normal Teams meetings. Live events allows you to do much more of a one-to-many or a couple-to-many type broadcast up to about 10,000 users, where there is no interactivity, but there is a live Q&A. So for those bigger events where you maybe want to push out information, whether that's a company-wide update or update to shareholders, then live events is perfect for that. And you've probably seen some of the meeting enhancements. Again, if you've got the updated Teams app, again, this has only come in the last month, so this was updated during August. You have this together view, which originally was designed for students to feel like they're back in a lecture theatre, I think. So it looks something like this, depending on how many people you've got. Apparently, it's better for your for humans to work in this way. It's less stressful for you to see it that way. I don't know. We've not really tried it massively yet, but that's an option there called Together View. And you've obviously seen the large gallery view in that dynamic screenshot there. So that 7x7 layout, which gives you the last, if you're on a call with 100 people, then clearly it will give you the last 49 people that spoke that have video enabled, or the last 49 that joined if nobody's spoken. So lots of stuff being pushed down the line. Again, apologies for those of you that attended the end user quick start event yesterday. You'll have seen this before. Just in terms of the roadmap and what Microsoft have delivered since March, it is mind-boggling just how quickly they're evolving Teams. I think it seems to be all of the focus is now on Teams for obvious reasons. I mean, before lockdown, it was heavily promoted and heavily developed. I think since lockdown and since the competitive threat from Slack, Zoom, WebEx, then Microsoft have definitely upped their game with how quickly they're bringing some of these innovations into the product. I think the big one, although less important now we're not traveling as much, is offline support. Obviously with Outlook you can compose messages and it will sync up when you get a connection. With Teams you can't do that yet. That's coming, and things like being able to share documents outside of Teams externally and have Teams manage all of that permissions for you. That's not easy to do at the moment. So there are a few things on the roadmap that we're hoping for. In terms of voice, you'll see down there compliance-based Teams recording. That's only Microsoft have only just made that API available. When I say just, I think it was March, April time, which allows third parties like WaveNet to plug things like chatbots for contact centers, things like call recording with the Variant platform into Teams. So that's been delivered in the last couple of months as well. I won't linger on any of the others, to be honest. They're not relevant to voice, but there is a roadmap if you're interested in taking a look at that. aka.ms/Teams roadmap. You can actually filter down. Oops. You can filter on the left-hand side of which products you're interested in, tick Teams, and it will tell you what enhancements they've committed to deliver, as in which enhancements have a delivery date attached to them. Doesn't always mean they'll meet it, but generally they will. So that's quite useful if you're thinking, is there something that I need to do that's not available in Teams, or wouldn't it be nice to have this feature? They also have something called user voice, where you can contribute to and say, yes, I'd like this feature to be brought up the priority list. You can actually do that, and they do take some notice of that, believe it or not. So that's sort of enough about Teams as a product, the Teams voice side. So just a little bit about sort of why Risc and WaveNet, and I guess what we bring to you as customers potentially. So if you deal with Risc, you get a single point of contact. I think that's the important thing. So whether that's Office 365 support, Office 365 licensing, which is a big part of what we do, that license provision, support, advice, optimization of your current Office 365 environment. We're a gold partner. Clearly, we're also a platinum partner of WaveNet's. Microsoft don't have platinum partners, by the way, just in case you're wondering why we're not a Microsoft platinum partner. I need to talk to them about that, but we're a WaveNet platinum partner. So we can bring those two elements together into a single offering to you as a customer, including that initial design, consultancy, deployment, project management, and ongoing support. Plenty of reference customers who'll be happy to talk to you. We've got a case study, or a couple of case studies actually, on our website. Again, Sean will share the links to those case studies with you. One's a small local company, one's the larger charity that I talked about that migrated just before lockdown. We have, if I bring that up, yes, thank you. I've got the PDF here that explains our sort of Teams fast track engagement. So for those of you that just want to get up and running quickly within Teams, and some help and advice in what that Teams structure should look like if you're not there already. So it's a 2-day consulting engagement that we can work with you through getting probably 80 to 90% of what you need in place in a couple of days, along with delivering training to your end users as well. As well as that Teams Fast Track, which is a costed consultancy, we're also offering, along with WaveNet, a free proof of concept. So for those of you that already have Teams, and again, I'm assuming that that's all of you, then we can add in a proof of concept up to 30 days, up to 25 users, and we'll set that up and configure it for you. A couple of exclusions on that, obviously, A, because of the cost, and B, you probably won't want to do this then. Number porting is not part of that, so we'll provide you with 25 new numbers for you to test with your users, and use it as much as you like for those 30 days. So that's an offering that we've made today. Just in terms of what else we're up to, as Boardroom Briefings being the organisation that's hosting these events for us, and ourselves in conjunction with a number of our partners. So obviously today's is the Unifying Communications with Teams, WaveNet. Redstore I mentioned before, we run an event called Securing Microsoft Teams along with Redstore. So that's all around how to ensure that your people are secure, using some of the Office 365 best practice, but also looking at ensuring that you have your Office 365 backed up, archived and recoverable with Redstore. And then got a couple of other sessions, one with our other partner ESET, which is around staying safe, and then Powering the Modern Workplace is in conjunction with Protoss Networks, which is again around the wider security, so things like Cyber Essentials and GDPR and firewalls and all of that sort of surrounding security approach. So again, if you're interested in any of those, they're available to book through the Boardroom Briefing site. Sean will send you the latest dates for those. I think we've got a couple more scheduled for September. Okay, I'll take a breath now after that session. So that was 2 sessions for the price of 1. So hopefully that was useful. Just have we got any questions in the chat, Sean? Will I take a sip of coffee?
We do, yeah. We've got a couple of people have asked some questions.
Say that again, Kirsty. Sorry, you're a bit quiet then.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we've got a couple of people who've asked some questions. So one person has put, if you're running with the contact center module, does the WaveNet platform take over the SIP signaling and then media flow? Is the first part. And then the second part is, does the platform integrate with existing SBCs, voice routes, etc., in different regions with different usages and translations?
Okay, let's go with the first one first, then, shall we? Let me just hang on a second. Let me just stop sharing that with you and pull that over so I can actually see the conversations. Are they in the chat window? Ah, okay, great. Okay, Toby, that's right. At least I'd like to know who's asked the question. So, I mean, fundamentally, again, the technology that sits behind the scenes, I'm not the expert at. We'll probably hook up with one of the WaveNet technical architects, but generally, whether it's the contact center module actually, or whether it's TeamsLink itself, once it's pushed that call into Teams, then that call sits within Teams. So effectively, the contact center platform and TeamsLink itself are a front end to the Microsoft Office 365 cloud. So effectively, there's a gateway, although the gateway is virtual gateway in the cloud, and it's a virtual SBC. So again, for those of you that have worked in this technology, so session border controller in the old days, you had to physically deploy one and host it yourself, or get somebody to host it for you, which was expensive and didn't scale very well. With direct routing, those SBCs are effectively a gateway connection from Office 365 into WaveNet's SBC platform. So you don't really need to worry about the design. So I think, Toby, if you've got existing infrastructure, if you've got existing SBCs that you're hosting yourselves, then that would probably be, well, undoubtedly would be a bespoke design. And I'm sure there's something that we could do and WaveNet could do to help you with that, to integrate that potentially. But that's probably, again, I've probably half answered that, Kirsty, in all honesty. I think we probably need.
I was going to say, Mark, I think it'd be a good idea maybe to set up a call with you and Mike as like on the side of this.
Yeah, Mike, and maybe one of the I know Suzanne, you're on here, but maybe one of the tech guys like Mick from WaveNet to kind of talk through some of the options over and above what's kind of standard out of the box that we would do for the majority of customers.
Yeah, so Toby, I will start a thread with you and Mark on the side of this session, and yeah, take it from there.
Okay, so Piyush, I think we answered that one, didn't we? Just basically it's the Verba platform from Verint.
No, that's it.
Then the other question was around external platforms such as WhatsApp. I don't know whether you answered that. I mean, the short answer is out of the box, no. The longer answer is that WaveNet themselves partner with a full multimedia contact center platform that is built or bolted into their infrastructure that we can access. So potentially that can support other third-party ways of getting customers into your contact center. Again, Sean, I think if we can take that conversation offline, I think that would probably be the best approach.
Yeah, sure thing. In fact, I've already sent Piyush your calendar. So yeah, Piyush, if you want to set up a call with Mark on the side of this the session today, then feel free. You've got his calendar. I've emailed it to you a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, and there's the case study. So Sean's already posted that. So thanks. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't mention Alzheimer's as the name, because they are on the website as a published case study. So I'm fine to talk about them as a case study. So Alzheimer's research were the customer I talked about that we'd migrated just before lockdown. So again, I'm sure they'll be happy to chat. There's a published case study with some quotes from both the head of IT and the CEO there, which theirs is based on. They looked at using the contact center and supervisor bolt-on, but actually decided at the end of the day with ring groups, they gave them everything they needed, to be honest. So they have donation lines, supporter, help desks, and they're effectively different numbers, and they're just ring groups, and that works fine for them. They're looking at maybe using some of the contact center functionality in the future, but for now they're using ring groups. And they moved pretty much overnight with some training, but yeah, it was timing was spot on from that point of view. Okay, so I think that's all the questions. Again, Toby, I think we'll probably take that offline and go into a bit more detail on that. It's difficult to answer that with any depth on this call. The only thing I missed out, if I just going to try and pull it up on my other screen, was the Verba platform. Didn't want to I think I've got it open somewhere else. I'm just going to log out and log back in again, and just very quickly, if I can, show you what that looks like. If not, we'll set up a separate session again. If the call recording side is something you are interested in, we are going to make a recording of the recording, if that makes sense. So we're going to record a 1-minute video just to show you what that looks like, and how you can access and search for conversations, and then we can make that available again as part of the download pack as part of this call. Yeah, I think we'll do that as a screen recording, Sean, and then make it available to the guys. So hopefully, if there's no more questions, hopefully that was useful for you. As I say, apologies for Mike not being here. Hopefully I did him justice. I'll let him watch the recording later and he can give me some feedback on how well I did it. I have seen it a number of times, and obviously we've worked with WaveNet for a long time, so I do understand the product pretty well. So hopefully you can join us for one of the other sessions. As I say, if there's anything particular you want to do, or you want to go into the portal, the call recording, the reporting, or anything like that in more detail, then by all means contact me directly or through Sean, and Sean can set up a session with Mike and I to go into a bit more detail.
Yeah, so everyone will receive post-event email today, which will have a session recording and some more information around TeamsLink, Business Voice, and everything that was discussed today. And also you will have access to Mark's direct email and his calendar as well, so that will all come across via email shortly after we finish today.
Okay, if there's no more questions, we'll stop the recording actually first. Let's just do that.